Hey, what's up? Guess what? I've got a Patreon. In order to get to it, this is what you need to do. Just hop on over to YouTube, go over to One Man's Opinions page. For me, it's easy. I just go to my channel, type it in, do however you want to do. Go over to my page. You'll be able to go over to the About section, drop on down, and you'll see a link right there, Patreon. You just click on it, and it'll take you straight to my Patreon page. Now, the thing to keep in mind is my content is not monetized yet. I don't make any money off of doing YouTube videos. So I can't offer you anything as far as rewards or discounts on merch or anything like that. The only thing I can offer you is thanks. I really appreciate it, and you'll never know how much it means to me if you decide to go and join up for one of the 5 tiers that I have. Beyond that, the point is, one day I hope to be monetized. One day I hope that the YouTube channel takes off and I'm able to do this at least more than I do now. That would be the dream. That's the goal. And all that means for you is, if the time comes that it is monetized, I ever get to where I can make merchandise, t-shirts, hats, anything like that, I'm going to remember those who subscribed before I had a chance to really offer them anything. I'm going to remember those who were taking a chance on One Man's Opinion and hoping, as much as I do, that it makes it somewhere one day. So it's going to mean a lot to me, and I promise you that if that day ever comes, discounts or whatever I can do, a free t-shirt, who knows. I'm so thankful. Thank you for taking the time to watch this. On to the video. Y'all get this to Bo Burnham. Bo, I hope you're watching, because at the end of your special, you made it a point to say maybe next time you can sit on the couch and watch me. So this is your opportunity. Sit on the couch and watch me. You said maybe I can tell the jokes. That's what you said. So here you go. Sit down. I want you to be comfortable for this. If April showers bring May flowers, what do May flowers bring? Pilgrims. What's up, everybody, and welcome to One Man's Opinion. And today, we're talking about Bo Burnham's new Netflix series comedy special, Inside. I think it's just called Inside. I don't think there's anything else to it. I think it's just Inside. So we're going to be talking about Inside by Bo Burnham. And this is complex, okay? This is not an easy one to review. On the outside looking in, going into Inside, if you will, I was thinking, as anyone probably should, that this should be reviewed as a comedy special, as comedy. So, like, I don't review dramas and comedy movies the same, right? Because in, like, a comedy film, let's just say a comedy film, you're not looking for, like, the same level of acting as you would look for in, like, a drama, right? You go watch a comedy film, you're like, okay, how funny is it? Because that's what you go to that movie for. And if you go see an action movie, you grade it as an action film. How was the action? Because that's what you go into the movie for. Now, maybe you're going for a certain actor, or maybe you're going for a certain director, or something like that. But essentially, every movie type, a scary movie, for example, you go to the movie and you want to know, well, how scary was it? Because it's a scary movie. That's why we have movie genres. It's, well, what kind of movie do I want to go see? So what can I expect to see based on what kind of movie I wanted to see? And that's kind of how I try to grade my movies, you know? Just a little bit. Obviously, acting and stuff like that goes into it. Writing, direction, all that stuff, I try to go into it. But the overall first thing I think is, this is a comedy movie. How funny is it? Comedy specials are a little different. Comedy specials are typically stand-up comedians doing a stand-up comedy routine. So in that respect, it's all about the comedy. It's just a stand-up comedy routine, so how funny is it? If it's really funny, well, it gets it's a good review. If it's not funny, then it's a bad review. This is not that way. And the problem is, I don't actually know what Bo was going for. I would love, the dream for this review would be that Bo Burnham sees this and I got to have a conversation with him. Like, I would love to pick Bo's brain about what he was thinking. It's so difficult to know what he wanted this to be. And if you've seen Inside, then maybe you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, then I'm sorry, but maybe a lot of this isn't going to make much sense to you. Inside is filmed, it's edited, it's directed, it's performed all by Bo Burnham. It's Bo Burnham. He did it while he was in quarantine over the course of all the COVID bullcrap. It's all him. It's all his project. First thing I should say is my respect for what he accomplished has no ending. I couldn't put a number on how incredible, how amazing what he put together is. And doing this YouTube thing really gives me more appreciation of it. I don't do very much editing. I cut and trim and take out parts that I don't like. And if you've seen me do my video game Resident Evil playthrough, then you know that sometimes I'll add in little cool stuff where like I'll zoom in or I'll change the color to black and white, and slow motion, instant replays, and different stuff like that, different editing techniques that I do there. I know how long it can take me to just do that hour. I know what kind of effort it goes into, and I don't have like a grand setup. I've got one little light here, I've got one little camera here, I've got my little microphone here, and when I'm doing the video game, I've got an Xbox controller and I've got a headset. And other than that, that's my production. Bo is using multiple cameras. He's playing music, he's singing, he's choreography, dancing, and you can tell by how everything lines up. And he's got multi-layered voices where he is the singer, but he's also the background singer, and the camera angles, and there's just so much that goes into it. The editing process must have been a nightmare. It must have taken forever, and I know it took forever because from the beginning of the production, by the time it's toward the end of it, he's already been filming and creating this thing a year, and it's evident because his beard is longer, his hair is longer, and so like literally it takes over a year for him to realize this comedy special that he wanted to put together. Just looking at it from just strictly from a creative standpoint, I could not applaud him more. It's really astounding. The level of determination he must have had to continue pushing through and working on all this stuff for over a year by himself. I'm telling you, it would take an incredible amount of determination to not walk away from it. It's impressive. Having said all that, Bo Burnham is highly intelligent. Bo Burnham has been around since I was in high school. He's only a few years older than me. I remember the first time I heard him, I was probably in like the 11th grade, maybe the 10th grade. He would have like just graduated high school the first time I heard him, or certainly would not have been out but just for a couple years. And I wasn't a big fan. Like, it was okay, but I was not necessarily a fan of his brand of comedy. But there was no doubting even then how intelligent he was. The way he puts words together, his vocabulary, his creative mind. He has a specific way that he wants to say something, and he finds the perfect words to get a specific idea across. He is very intentional with the words that he chooses and the things that he says. Even then, even as a 19, 20-year-old, when he did what I'm assuming was his first major comedy album. It's like he does like comedy music, so I don't know if he had like a special then, or if I heard him. My friend had a CD with like a bunch of his songs burned on it, or maybe he had it on his phone. I can't remember exactly. Either way, it was. I don't know if it was like a comedy special then, or if it was just music. Just like funny music, kind of like a Weird Al type thing. But either way, just listening to it then, when he would have been that young, you could tell that the guy was, at the very least, even if you didn't think he was funny, and it was hit or miss for me. Some of it was okay, but I wasn't a fan necessarily. My friend was a big fan. But even then, you could tell, if nothing else, the guy was very intelligent. He's very articulate, and the things he puts together are impressive. And that line has continued throughout his career. He's always been very intelligent. And so I appreciate all those things. I appreciate the intelligence behind it, the creativity, the dedication to the work. It's really astounding. The thing that is confusing and makes this very difficult to grade is I don't know that this was ever supposed to be comedy. I know it's called a comedy special. I understand that. And perhaps when he started, that's what he wanted it to be. But I don't think by the end that that's what it was. And I don't even know if by the end that's what he wanted it to be anymore. And that's what makes it so tricky. Throughout this comedy special, Bo slips into a depression. Now, look, he even makes a statement at some point, like halfway through the special, that he isn't depressed and that he doesn't actually want to kill himself. That may be true. He may not have been depressed while he was filming it specifically, what we saw. But there is no doubt, you can't fake the kind of depression that is shown at different times during this comedy special. At the very least, he has battled depression in the past and uses that to pull from, so that what he shows us on camera comes from a very real place. So even if at the moment that you're seeing him on screen, even if that is just a portrayal of depression and he's not actually depressed in that moment, he has at the very least been very depressed. And there is an overarching theme throughout this entire thing about depression. Now, a lot of people during the pandemic and during that lockdown, and some states had it a lot worse than others. Some states were locked down and stuck inside for a year. I mean, they were in there for a long, long time. And depression was a very real thing that a lot of people went through. Suicide rates went really high, and you know, some states still battling that sort of thing. Some states still battling lockdowns and that sort of thing. I don't know if it was just trying to be an accurate portrayal of what people are going through, or if we saw a very real slow decline in his mental health as he was filming it. Regardless, the comedy is there throughout, but it takes a back seat to a theme of depression that goes on during the entire performance. The question is, was it all played off as it is supposed to be comedy, or did it start off as supposed to be comedy and then evolved into an overall statement about depression? I don't know. I don't know if the idea was always to make something more than comedy, or if it was something that grew and changed as he went through it. The thing you have to remember is a stand-up comedian gets on stage in front of a crowd of millions and makes jokes about depression. Those jokes land because it's talking about something that people can deal with. Comedy has always gone after subjects that are serious. Comedy has always talked about very serious issues and shed them in a light that was humorous but also had truth to it. And it's that truth that makes the comedy, because we all are like, oh yeah, that's relatable. Because even though it's a serious subject, like, we all think similar about a lot of things, and that's where comedy comes from. And so you have this comedian who stands on stage and he presents these true things in a funny way, and it makes us all laugh while also kind of holding a mirror up to society. And that's the best thing about comedy, is that you can speak truth while also making people laugh, and it's a good way to get people thinking. The bad thing about this special is that instead of Bo standing on stage for an hour and just telling people about his depression or about the things he went through during the pandemic, we have this almost 2-hour special that from start to finish evolves over the course of an actual year. And in real time, you see changes happen to Bo, his beard and his hair. And either it's a genius look at depression, or it's an actual look at depression. And either way, it's there. And I think, kind of like in Tropic Thunder, when Robert Downey Jr. tells Ben Stiller, "You went too deep, you never go full retard," you've crossed a line. At some point, this crossed a line that comedians aren't able to cross on stage, because you don't see all the depression, you don't see all the bad things that a comedian's talking about while he's on stage. You just hear him present it in a funny way. This you actually physically see, and you can't pull your empathy out of it for the laughs, because it's like, this guy is actually struggling. I know he's playing a lot of it for comedy, but there are real struggles that are going on here, and it makes it harder for the comedy to get through that empathetic barrier. And so it's difficult to judge. If I just sat down and I said, hey, is this funny? And I would say, well, yeah, it has funny moments, but it's really not all that funny. So it wouldn't get a very high grade because as far as comedy specials go, I've seen much funnier. But it's more than that. It's more than just a comedy special. And so how to grade it? I don't know. You look at the respect I have for it. You look at all the effort that clearly went into it, the heart, the desire to create something that is truly artistic. Art is not a word that I use much because everything is art. Like people who create movies are artists and people who paint are artists and musicians are artists. And basically it gets to the point where it's like, anyone who takes time to create something that comes from the heart, that's art, and that's like, I don't really agree with that. I think art should be held at a higher standard. Like, I don't think what I do here is art. I'm just talking about movies or TV shows or video games or whatever it is. This is just, one man's opinion. That's exactly what it is. It's just me giving my takes on different things, in pop culture. That's all this is. But some people would look and they would say, no, it's a creative thing. It's creative expression. That's art, I disagree. So I stay away from the word art because I think art should be something that's truly special. And I do 110% believe that Inside is something that is truly special and that it is very artistic in nature, while also being incredibly goofy at times, incredibly childish at times. I think that there's a lot of symbolism that's very serious. I think there's a lot of symbolism that if you're not looking for it, a lot of people might have missed, and things that have deeper meaning than they do on the surface. And I think there's a lot of that in there. And honestly, I could talk about all that stuff for a long time, but this has already been a long review. What I'm saying is that you could look at this very simply, or you could look at it very complicated. And very simply, is it a very funny comedy special? No. There were moments where I laughed. Yes. There were moments that made me chuckle. There were moments that were just like in a good comedy special. There were moments that were dealing with something that was very serious, but kind of had like a dark sense of humor twist on it. And those things made me laugh, or at least gave me that like, I see what you're doing, kind of feeling on the inside. But there were also moments where it was like, look, he may have sat back and said, I'm going to film this very depressing moment and show it because I want it to be a part of the message that I'm getting across, and then performed a depressing moment very convincingly. He might have done that. But at the very least, those very depressing moments were being pulled from a real depression that he certainly has gone through. You just can't fake it. You just can't. I'm sorry. There's no way that someone who has never gone through depression could come up with that sort of thing and accurately display it the way he did. And so, I don't know. I feel like the last thing I want to say before I give a rating is I don't want to give off the impression that this comedy special is depressing. I don't want to give off that impression because I know I've talked a lot about depression and a lot about that sort of more serious side of it. I think I'm talking about that so much because it was what caught me off guard. It was the part that was worth mentioning that stood out from other comedy specials, something that you might not have expected if you're going into this blind the way that I did. Is there a lot of social commentary? Absolutely. There's a ton of social commentary on a variety of subjects. A lot of it, I think he hit the nail on the head. A lot of it, I think he was being very satirical and sarcastic at times. Bo Burnham was playing 3D chess in this thing. There's no doubt. There's no doubt either this is the most basic comedy routine you've ever seen and everything is exactly what you think it is on the surface when you're watching it. That's option one. Or Bo Burnham was playing 3D chess this entire time, and he knew what he was putting out there. He said certain things in sarcastic ways. He said other things in satirical ways, and I think sometimes he even took it a step further where he knew you thought that he was being sarcastic, but in actuality he was playing satire on top of sarcasm, which means what he was saying was actually the fact to begin with, and that's the point he was trying to get across. I know that sounds insane, but if you watch this and you really look for it, I don't think there's any doubt that Bo Burnham was actually playing 3D chess with the whole thing. Like I said, he's incredibly intelligent. Having sidelined watched his career for the majority of his career, never really been an active participant in his career, never been a huge fan, but just one way or the other, I've seen a lot of Bo Burnham's work throughout his career, just happenstance. I watched his last comedy special, and I watched this one, and just knowing how he does things, I think he was playing 3D chess the whole time. And I think that there are some things that he was trying to say that I will never get out of it if I watch it 5 times. I think there are other things that he was saying or trying to say that you'll never get out of it. And I think only Bo himself really knows what every single little bit was actually trying to say and get across. And I think, again, that speaks to how artistic and how intelligent the whole thing was. The final question is, did it all land the way he intended? And that's what is tough, because I don't know what he intended with this. After watching it, when a comedian stands on stage, they intend to make you laugh. If that was Bo's intention for this whole thing, then I would say he missed the mark. But if his intention was to make you laugh some, to make you think some, to show a side of depression some, if it was multifaceted and it was 3-dimensional, and I know for a fact it was, I don't need to ask him to know that it was, I think he hit that mark on the head. And so, do I grade it as, did the artist get across what he wanted to get across, assuming that what I took from it was what he wanted me to take from it? Or do I just say, did I like it, or did I not? And that's tough. That's a tough way to look at it. After giving it a lot of thought, I'm giving Bo Burnham's Inside an 85. I'm giving it an 85 because I couldn't possibly give it a low score based on how much work and passion and heart and effort went into it. There's no possible way I could. I also did laugh. And so from a comedy standpoint, there were certainly moments that made me laugh. But I also have to believe that there was more to it than that. That it wasn't just supposed to make me laugh. That it was also supposed to make me think and question. And it did those things. And so for all those reasons, it gets an 85. The reason it doesn't get like a 99 or a 95 is because I don't think it's always clear what you're supposed to get from it. And now that could have been Bo's choice too. He could have created it and said, I want it to be a little abstract at times. I don't want my audience to always know what I'm trying to get them to see. I want to see what my audience sees. Maybe that's what he was going for. But regardless, the questions, the unknowing, and the uncertainty forces me to leave room for error. And so I can't give it just a super, super high grade. And so I wanted to give it something that was good because as a piece of art, I think it was brilliant. As a comedy special, it was probably subpar. So I had to give it something that just seemed fair. A very interesting thing, to say the least. I'm sorry this was so long, but frankly, there were a lot of other things I wanted to talk about that I just didn't have time to. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, be sure to leave a like. Be sure to comment down below. Be sure to subscribe and all that other good stuff. If you didn't like it, I would love to hear those thoughts as well. Do you think I missed something? Did I miss the mark? Was he going for something totally different and I was way too focused on one certain thing and missed the other thing? Maybe it was something like that. Maybe you didn't like this review at all. And if you did not like this review, don't get mad. Remember, this is just one man's opinion. Thanks.